Hello, everyone, and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1101, 1101, Monday, April the 13th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, well, hopefully you all had a happy Easter as best as you can. Obviously, I'm sure there wasn't a lot of the typical activities going on, probably a lot of Easter eggs around the house or maybe in the house, but small gatherings, if any at all. So, anyway, a little bit of a different situation. It was kind of a weird Easter for me, I guess. But anyway, hopefully you're all doing well and staying healthy, and hopefully we're getting ready to open the country back up again and get back to work and get back to normal. And I've been hearing these conversations the last couple of days about what's things going to look like when we get past this. And well, I mean, I think we'll go back to playing football and basketball and baseball and hockey, and we'll go back to NASCAR races, and we'll go back to concerts, and we'll go back to all these things. I don't think it'll happen overnight. I think it will take a little bit of time for people to get totally comfortable with getting back to being in large crowds of people, kind of waiting for the all clear sign plus a month or two. So I don't think that a lot of these things are going to immediately snap right back, but I think it will take a little time. But I think for the most part, we're pretty much going to get back to normal. People will go back to being what they were before. As far as the politics are concerned, that will pick up right where it left off. They'll move on to the next thing to be war over, and things will just go back pretty much the way they were. I do think that there are some long-term things that we might see change, and that is this tradition of shaking hands may be going away. We may find some other way to greet people, or confirm a business deal or something like that. So I think that we may find some alternative to shaking hands. Asian countries did this a long time ago, and so I think that that's something that may look a little bit different in the future. And I think that maybe when cold and flu season comes around, I think that we might see people automatically, just out of habit, will kind of go back to the kind of a social distancing, maybe see people wearing masks and things like that. Just in typical cold and flu season, I think that we'll start to see some of those types of things. But I think for the most part, 90% of everything we've always done before will get back to normal relatively soon. Not overnight, but relatively soon. And I think that there will be some big changes in the way, not just the United States, but the way that the world deals with China, and the way that the countries all across the world start to care a lot more about their supply chains and making sure that they produce their own pharmaceuticals, medicines, antibiotics, and things like that. There'll be more of a drive for inner independency by countries not wanting to be so independent on foreign actors, especially when the foreign actors are the Chinese communists. So I think a lot of people learned a lot of hard lessons here, and I think that that's something that we can expect to see in the future once we get past this. Which they're hearing, these reports that Trump's going to try to reopen the country on May the 1st. I think that would be a good idea. The sooner the better. I think there might be a few hot spots where you may have to still have a little bit of a lockdown there. But hopefully by May the 1st, the curve everywhere across the country is down, and we can handle it some other way. I'm for whatever gets the country back to normal as quickly as possible. I think that that's what I'm for. I do have a slight concern that we could see a relapse if we jump too early, or if we go back to being in very large crowds too soon. I think there's a possibility there. We've seen a little bit of that flare up other places, so I think there's some caution there. But I trust the president's judgment. I'm sure he'll make the right call. Again, it's you have to make the call at some point, because while the virus can certainly cost lives and make people sick and cause problems, a collapsed economy, a broken economy, also creates loss of life, a lot of sick people, a lot of people in bad financial situations, a lot of people in bad situations in general. So, I mean, you have the economic side of it, and you have the health side of it, and there are bad things that can occur as a result of both being out of whack. So, anyway, I think it's going to be a kind of a tough call for the president on when to do this, but I think he'll make the right call. And he's at this point in his presidency, after 3 years, if you look back at the decisions he's made, He's made some really, really good decisions since he's become president, and I trust him 100% to make a decision like this, and I'll support him 100% whatever he decides to do, because he's the person that's ultimately going to be held accountable for it, and ultimately he has the inside information that we all don't have. He probably has a different view of it than we all have. So yeah, I'll support the president, and I certainly hope that we can get back to normal as soon as possible. And I'd like to not have to, literally, it's really hard for content creators on the internet like myself the past 3 weeks or so, just trying to find anything to talk about other than coronavirus. It's nearly impossible. There's just, the news is literally just not talking about anything else. Obviously, we had a little bit of information this week on Spygate news, but not really covered much at all in the mainstream media. So anyway, yeah, I would like to get back to covering the real story that I'm interested in, and that is the Spygate story. And I'm really tired of talking about and hearing about coronavirus. Having said that, let's go into the two main news items of the day and then get on to Dumbass of the Week. So there is something that's been kind of going around the past couple of days. I think Undercover Huber is the first place where I saw it. Paul Sperry tweeted it out. George Stephanopoulos, Papagalopoulos. Papagalopoulos retweeted this as well. I've seen a lot of other people retweet it. Now the story's been picked up by quite a few people. I'm not sure where it originated, but it's being, let's say, rumored or reported, however you want to look at it, that Stuart Evans, who was the Deputy Assistant Attorney General at the Department of Justice National Security Division, is cooperating with the Durham investigation. Now, this should not surprise any of us. So let's go back to right after the Strzok page texts were released. This would have been back, I guess, in the summer of 2017. And there was a series of texts in there where we didn't understand a lot about what it meant at the time. Now we know a lot about what it meant, but there was a text message here where Peter's Been Stroking Us was complaining to Lisa Page. And he was telling her that the exact tweet or exact quote from Strzok, I can't remember if it was a tweet or an email, but or a text. I think it was a text. But I believe it was Been Stroking Us, who texted to Page, quote, currently fighting with Stu for this FISA. Currently fighting with Stu for this FISA. And then if you go on and follow up on that, you can see that Peter's Been Stroking Us was telling Lisa Page that they were trying to get this FISA. This would be the first FISA on Carter Page, trying to get that through the DOJ and SD, but this guy, Stu Evans, was putting up a fight on that. He was questioning things about this. Evans had a problem with the confidential human source at that time, Christopher Steele, which he referred to as a confidential human source. He had concerns about possible bias. Evans also had issues with just the general reliability of the information that was coming from this, what we now know as the so-called Steele dossier. At that time, it wasn't even the complete dossier. It was just the memos at that time. And so in this particular situation, Been Stroking Us is complaining to Lisa Page that he wants her to go over and, basically push Stu Evans a little, harder to get him to capitulate, to go along with the rest of the team. Apparently he was the lone holdout within the team over at the DOJ that was still questioning whether or not they should go for this FISA on Carter Page. So Stu Evans was throwing a wrench in the spokes. And Been Stroking Us wanted Lisa Page to go, put her foot in his ass and get him to fall in line, which he eventually did. He eventually did fall in line. He wasn't happy about it, but he eventually did capitulate, and he eventually did go along with it. But he was putting up a hell of a fight over the first Carter Page FISA, because he had issues with Christopher Steele, and what was in those memos that would later become known as the dossier. So anyway, this story that this rumor or report or whatever, however you want to call it, that Stuart Evans is cooperating with the Durham investigation. This would certainly make sense. If this is true, it certainly does make sense, because he would certainly be someone that obviously knew there was a lot of problems with the Carter Page FISA warrant, did not want to go along with it. He was really kind of pushed into it. And the damage that he would do would be damage directly to the Crossfire Hurricane team, and of course his ultimate superiors, I should say, which I would think be Sally Yates and probably James Comey, would be the two people that would probably be the highest level people that Stu Evans could be a problem for, because that would have been the two people that he would have likely answered to or would have gone to. Well, Sally Yates would have probably been his so-called boss, but Comey on the FBI side would have been not necessarily his equal, but certainly Stu Evans could have been a problem for Comey, and for Comey to get Stu Evans to play ball, it would take something coming from Comey. It probably, I don't know that Lisa Page was high enough in the food chain to be able to pressure Stu Evans without saying, hey, someone told me to come over here and apply the pressure on you. And that someone would likely, if it had been Sally Yates or Comey. It's not like Lisa Page could pull rank on Stu Evans. I don't think that she was... Lisa Page was essentially McCabe's legal counsel. So, I don't know that McCabe or Lisa Page would have had the rank, so to speak, to pull rank on someone like Stu Evans. It probably would have taken someone higher up, like his boss, Sally Yates, or Comey himself. So the people probably most endangered by Stu Evans' top level players would be Yates and Comey, and of course the Lisa Page, Ben Strokenos, and McCabe, who were all pressing, plus the other people over at the DOJ NSD who were wanting to go along with it, and that likely would have been Michael Atkinson, Mary McCord, Sally Moyer, Trish Gohar. These would have been the people that probably would have been in his group that he would have been fighting with. So anyway, it's a very interesting thing, and I believe it makes sense, and I believe it's probably true. Again, because we know back from when this first broke, with these Strzok and Page emails, and this was something that a lot of us focused on at the time, because it showed you that clearly there was at least one person within the DOJ NSD that knew that what they were doing was probably not legal, was very problematic, and could lead to trouble down the road for some of these people. And I don't know that Stu Evans was, just trying to cover his rear end, or if he actually had a problem with it, an ethical problem with it. It's hard to say at this point, or both. It could have been both. Likely was both. But I guess we're going to find out more. But it is an interesting thing to hear that Stu Evans, and I'm sure he's not the only one, obviously, that is cooperating with the investigation. I assume you're going to have quite a few people over on the intelligence side working under Brennan, working under Clapper, who are also going to be cooperating, and probably throwing Brennan and Clapper under the bus, because, again, I think a lot of people probably did things that they knew were not ethically right, but, if the boss is telling you to do it, I guess in the bureaucracy, the way things work is you do it. So I think that we're going to see a lot more of this sort of thing. I think that Kevin Kleinsmith is another person that has to be watched very carefully, because Kleinsmith, pretty obviously he wasn't working alone. And I think when Durham explains that to him, it's like, look, we know you weren't doing this all on your own. You obviously to feel like you had cover to do what you were doing. So was anyone prompting you to do it? Did anyone suggest it was okay for you to do it? Was anyone else aware that you were going to do it and put up no problem with it? So I think they're going to create some opportunities for Kevin Kleinsmith to also lessen his liability by giving information to Durham as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of this sort of thing as you see the heat being turned up and people starting to realize that there's going to be actual consequences for what they did. I think you will start to see people turning, cooperating, and that's when the whole thing collapses in. And the top tier players, I mean, they're going to be left holding the bag, I do believe, in this particular instance. So there you go. New information on Spygate. Stu Evans cooperating with the Durham investigation. Now, Catherine Herridge has been kind of sending out quite a few tweets. Been reading through a lot of them. And I think probably the most salient tweet that I read, there's quite a few good ones there, but I think she does a good job of making it perfectly clear that from these declassified footnotes, along with her other reporting, is that it was December of 2016, when Bruce Orr went to his handler, who was sort of the guy handling Bruce Orr and being like an intermediary between Orr and the Crossfire Hurricane team. And that would have been Jonathan Moffa. So Bruce Orr is being debriefed by Jonathan Moffa on a fairly regular basis. And Bruce Orr, in December of 2016, tells Moffa, he says, well, I was having a conversation with Glenn Simpson. And Glenn Simpson tells me that one of Steele's subsources, and we believe he's talking about Sergei Milian, could be a Russian, intel officer or working for Russian intelligence. Described him as maybe an RIS officer, which would be Russian Intel Service. And he is identified in the Horowitz report as person number 1, and we believe that that's Milian. So here you have Bruce Orr in December telling the Operation Crossfire Hurricane team through Jonathan Moffa that Glenn Simpson is identifying one of Christopher Steele's subsources, which we believe is Sergei Milian, as being a Russian intel officer or some sort of an asset for the Russians. And so this is where this whole narrative of it was Russian disinformation comes from. I'm not 100% sold on this myself, because I am not 100% certain that we know why people like Milian or why any of these people, Deripaska, any of these other people that have been brought up as being sources for Steele, I'm not 100% sure that we know where they were getting their information. So they go to this source, Steele's primary source, in January, and they talk to him, and he says, well, I can't believe that Christopher Steele was actually trying to pass this stuff off, this dossier stuff off, as intelligence. I certainly never described it as intelligence. It was just me and a couple of friends sitting around in the pub having beers and just talking trash. I wouldn't call that intelligence, and I'm really surprised that Steele is trying to pass it off as intelligence and putting it into a dossier and trying to pass it off as something serious. It was just such barroom talk. Not only that, but he also tells the FBI investigators that when Steele says that his source, his main primary source, had his own network of informants, and they ask him about that, he says, network of informants? I don't have any network of informants. Unless you consider me and my friends sitting around in a bar drinking some beers and talking trash as a network of informants. None of them with anything to do with any intelligence or government or anything else. So no, I don't really have any network of sources. So this is what they knew. This is what Comey knew when he went over and briefed Trump at Trump Tower about the dossier. He knew it was total bullshit. He knew it was either A, on one hand, possible Russian disinformation, but he also knew that the so-called sources were just, some guy who had given Steele some information, which he says he didn't even consider real intelligence, and he had no network of informants. Despite that, if you look into the Horowitz report, the Horowitz report still describes Steele's primary source as having a network of sources. But these declassified footnotes now show that this individual did not have any network of sources and told the FBI he had no network of sources. Yet, both in the IG report and in the Mueller report, they continue to say that this source of Steele's had a network of informants, despite the fact that this informant debunked it himself in December of 2016. Yet despite that, they go give Trump the briefing in Trump Tower on the dossier. Comey gives this briefing knowing everything I just told you he knew. Then they go ahead with the Carter Page FISA warrants, the first one, and went on with the renewals. They go ahead with the Mueller investigation, which I believe is the insurance policy, and everything else that goes along with it. So when all that stuff happened, they had already talked with Steele's primary source, who told him he had no network of informants, and that he didn't even consider what he told Steele to be intelligence. He just considered it to be barroom garbage talk. They had talked to the subsource, which we believe is Sergei Milian, who said, who claims he's not a Russian agent. Now, Sergei Milian, he doesn't even fit the description of a Russian intelligence officer or anyone involved in Russian intelligence. First of all, he's been living in the United States for over 20 years. He spent most of his time in the U.S. living in New York. I think now, or last time we heard from him, he was like in Florida. But he's been living in the United States for a very long time, around 2 decades. And he's a con man. He's kind of a guy who's kind of a con man. Of course, he popped up on the radar because he was friends with Michael Cohen, and it was Milian and Cohen who were trying to put together this deal to get a Trump hotel in Moscow. Of course, it never materialized. And Milian and Cohen were both hoping to pocket some cash on the deal for being like intermediaries or putting the deal together. And it never materialized. And, Milian, you can go watch some YouTube videos of him being interviewed. He totally blows off being a Russian intelligence officer, having anything to do with Russian intelligence, and he doesn't fit the mold of a Russian intelligence officer. He's too much of a con man, too much of a guy who talks too much of a guy who's, in fact, we know that when his name first came up, and that was a long time ago when his name first came up, we learned that he's someone who stays on the FBI's watch list, on the radar, is just a guy they watch a lot. And because of his business, financial dealings. He does all this shady stuff, business-wise. When the Russians send agents to this country, they usually are professors teaching at some university or something like that, or businessmen. They're typically straight, very straight shooters. They have very good backgrounds, all that kind of stuff. I mean, they look straight up. Milian's too loose-lipped of a character, too much of a kind of a con man guy, a guy who draws too much attention to himself, not the type of guy that the Russians would generally select for intelligence work inside the U.S. He just doesn't fit the mold. And he himself admits or says that he has nothing to do with Russian intelligence, and I believe that. But anyway, they have Milian, they talk to him, and he says basically the same thing, that, anything I said to Steele was not anything of intelligence related, so I don't know what's going on. In fact, he really plays it off a lot. There's an interview you can watch on YouTube where he plays off the whole thing like, well, I really didn't have much to say to Steele. I talked to him a time or two, but, but we don't know. But I guess the thing that still I think we need to dive deeper here, because it looks like to me that the people who were so-called informing Steele may have been getting informed themselves from deep state players like Stefan Halper, or someone like that. We don't know that it wasn't Glenn Simpson feeding Milian, and Milian feeding Steele, and then Steele feeding Simpson back. In other words, kind of a loop, a feedback loop. The stuff not coming from Russia, the stuff coming from within deep state players who were giving this information to so-called Russian assets, who were then feeding it to either Simpson or Steele. And that's what I think that we're ultimately going to be looking at here. Because as I've been saying for years, I still can't find any Russians Where are the Russians? So, anyway, the fact that they had this information, the bottom line is the fact that they had all this information back in December of 2016. Then in January of 2017, the FBI themselves then go to work on the dossier and they debunk it almost completely. So this is another reason why I think that Durham and Barr are going to be indicting quite a few deep state players. It's because what they did, what they did during the election, that's shady, and there's some issues with what they did, certainly with the frame-ups of Papadopoulos. When they tell us that they started Operation Crossfire July 31st, 2016, that can't be true. Too many things going on with Papadopoulos, Carter Page, Michael Flynn, Roger Stone. Too many things going on before then. So there's going to be some mess there that has to be cleaned up and some people likely indicted. But it's what they did from January 2017 on through the Mueller investigation, which is where I think the real heads are going to be rolling in this deal. Because by then, they knew everything. And that's what Barr was telling Laura Ingraham. Now, let's go ahead and get to Dumbass of the Week. Well, let's see. I forgot to announce on the video for everybody to put in their picks for Dumbass of the Week, so I wasn't as many people contributing, and plus it's Easter Sunday, so a lot of people are probably just taking the day off. But anyway, we do have some votes to cast, so let's go ahead and count, so let's go ahead and go through them. Okay, we have Oregon Outback, and he is going to go with the beer virus for messing up his Easter egg hunt. The beer virus. Okay. Lori Holt is going to go with the rat-faced Fauci. Yes, and of course, I guess many of you saw Fauci on Sunday morning with Jake Crapper, where he suggests that Trump could have saved lives if he would have acted earlier. Oh, that's nice. And he also said that, yeah, we may not be able to vote in the normal way, and we may have to have mail-in balloting for November. I don't think so. No. That ain't going to happen. No. We can do social distancing. We can wear complete headgear, scarves, hazmat suits, whatever it takes to vote at the polls. Mail-in voting is definitely not. You talk about voter fraud, man. It will be off the hook if you go with mail-in voting. But this is what Fauci suggested on Jake Crapper's show on Sunday morning. Man, I am so done with Fauci. I really, really am done. And, Trump tweeted out or retweeted a caption by someone who did tweet out what Fauci said, criticizing him, and Trump retweeted the criticism of Dr. Fauci saying that to Jake Crapper. So clearly, Trump knows that he's got deep staters in his midst, even in this type of a crisis. These people never quit. Fauci and Birx are not Trump's friends. They're working for the other team. Believe me. And I know most of you do. I know just from reading in the comments section. I don't see very many positive Fauci comments in there. So, yep, Lori Holt, rat face Fauci. Net is going to go with the bug-eyed fool, Madam Botox, and John Durham for moving so slowly on his investigation. Let's see, Gene Alley is going to go with Fauci and Birx. The White House press corps, and Gretchen Whitmer. Yeah, there's 3 winners right there, Fauci and Birx. I'm done with both of them. The White House press corps, I think, I wouldn't allow them to ask questions anymore. I would tell them to write their questions down, and I would have someone look at their question and go through it before they even give it to the president. And if it's a bullshit question, I'd toss it in the trash. Gretchen Whitmer, obviously, that woman's making a lot of critical mistakes. She's a bird brain. Of course, Gene, has problems with his own governor there in Virginia. I don't know, Gene, who would you rather have, Gretchen Whitmer or Governor Blackface? They're equally horrific. Let's see. Someone voted for Fauci and Birx, and I forgot to write your name down. My apologies. Mark Tezak is going to go with the gates of hell. Larry Rydell is going to go with those who will call for their civil liberties and rights to be taken away, and then rat on people as well. Yeah, these people who are just willing to just give up everything for this temporary virus, or these people just amaze me. It's these people are just, these are the dumbest among us right here. These people have never read any history, don't understand anything about anything, and they're the most dangerous people in the country. Unfortunately, there's quite a few of them. And of course, ratting people out, that's just something I'm really not into at all. And so yeah, you're right, Larry. That is definitely will get you a high nomination for Dumbass of the Week. Freddie Schaffer is going to go with Feinstein. Turn in your guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein. She's got another name for her, though. She's got another name for her, though. You have to read the comment section having to do with being a Chinese spy. Very clever. Let's see. We have Fauci, of course, and Tedros and the World Health Organization. Yeah, that whole group. Defund the WHO. Just completely. I just want to have nothing to do with the EU, the WHO, the bureaucrats, the technocrats in Brussels. I just want nothing to do with that. That whole shit show in Europe is just, I just want nothing to do with it. And it's likely not going to survive much longer anyway. I think that the coronavirus is going to be one of the final nails in the coffin for the EU. I expect when this thing's all said and done, you're going to see some real movement, some real earthquakes going on in the EU. I think the EU is probably going to take a devastating hit as a result of coronavirus, and it be the best thing that could happen for Europe. Jonathan Cassidy will go with Pope Francis, Bill Gates, and Fauci. Birdwell will go with Fauci. Jeanette Bateman will go with Fauci, Feinstein, and Piglosi. Linda Martin will go with Piglosi, the Bug-Eyed Fool, Pencil Neck Geek, Adam Schiff, and mail-in and she's going with Pelosi and Schiff because they're pushing this mail-in voting to be part of this fourth relief bill. It's not going to happen. It'll never pass. Thank God for that. But yeah, we can never ever allow this mail-in voting, anything like that to happen. That would, we need to go the other direction. We have enough issues with voting as it is, with fraud. I'm talking about ballot harvesting. Cost us 8 seats in California. No thanks. Joe Christensen, Fauci and Birx. JV will go with the WHO, the Democrat governors. Yeah, it's clear the Democrat governors, but they're playing a risky game. They can defy Trump and they can keep their cities closed, but it's going to hurt them in the long run. If they get it wrong, it's really going to reflect badly on them. And some of them governors are up for re-election. I think they'll think twice, but we'll watch and see. And also Fauci. Thanks, JV. Christine Watkins will go with Tedros. Yeah, that guy should definitely resign. They shouldn't have to wait to be asked to resign. He should just resign. What a stupid statement he made about the body bags. Ricky Ricardo is going to go with Fauci. Douglas is going to go with Laura Ingraham. Stefan Molyneux for his poem. And Mayor Garcetti. Yeah, he's a total tyrannical creep right there. We have the sane environmentalist going with Dr. Birx and, of course, Ocasio-Cortez. Cards is going to go with Dr. Fauci. Stage Door Johnny will go with Tedros, Fauci, and Chris Hayes. Yeah, Chris Hayes, man, that guy's a wacko. You got to get rid of them glasses. I think he thinks the glasses make him look smarter. I think they make him look stupider. Anyway, this week's Dumbass of the Week, coming in first place, will be Fauci and Birx. Fauci and Birx. Clearly, you've all had enough of them. Coming in second place will be Madam Botox, Pelosi galore. And coming in third will be Tedros and the World Health Organization. Yes, I'm done with all of these people. All of these people. Fauci and Birx, Pelosi, Tedros, and the World Health Organization can all go straight to the waste can. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys stay safe and be well. See you. Bye.